Welcome to the Further Light Podcast, presented by Wisconsin Freemasonry, helping you accomplish your Masonic goals through education and more light. And now, I present to you Brother Napoleon Sneed-Janczak.
Where have the brothers gone? They said they enjoyed the experience of going through the degrees. They have been raised a master mason, and they came around the lodge regularly for a few months or a year, and then they slowly started to drift away from the lodge. I'm sure you all know what I'm talking about to some degree. I'm Brother Napoleon Sneed-Janczak, and today I would like to discuss a topic that it has always been relevant in the lodges, but started to find us heavily in the face of, post-COVID pandemic, where brothers started to, feel lonely and they just needed something and maybe we weren't fulfilling it. And we find ourselves trying to figure out, what went wrong. Of course, there may have been many different reasons for this, but are we identifying the void and trying to fill a need, especially when it comes to the member retention aspect, or bringing in new brothers who share our values? And what excites brother Masons to want to stay active in our craft? I have yet to discover the magic secret. That is to say, there is no one answer or solution to fix the lack of engagement, but we do know that there are missteps or even oversight that can lead to lodges losing membership or falling out of labor, if you will. In this podcast, I'd like to read a paper from a past master of Silas Shepherd Lodge of Research, number 1843 here in Wisconsin, one worshipful brother Christian K. He saw this back in 2015, and he felt the hunger for trying to explain the issue and possibly a solution to it also. I will add that this particular episode will be dealing with some self-reflections in hopes that it triggers something within each of us to see if we can make a change for the better going forward and possibly fix some of the issues with regard to retention and what it is that excites Masons to keep them in the lodge. So I'd like to share this paper with you with some addendums of mine, of course, in hopes that it may serve a better cause while building or rebuilding the spirit of the membership in each of your respective lodges. So be mindful, these are Brother Chris K's words, and I will be reading it as if I were him. And he references one Dennis Chernesky, the Traditional Observance Lodge, also Andrew Hammer, Observing the Craft, some works from the Masonic Restoration Foundation, and also Cliff Porter, also of the Traditional Observance, Living Stones, Volume 2, Issue 6, and also the King James Bible, Psalm 133 in particular. He called this paper Better, Not Perfect, and he labeled it his Ruminations on Freemasonry, and he presented this within the Research Lodge in 2016. So I'll start by reading this paper pretty much verbatim. He says, this paper will seem like a lot of digression and unrelated scenarios, but it is an analogy of sorts to pursue a point of fact. To begin with, many years ago, I studied at a culinary school in South Seattle to become a chef. A chef is not like what you see in the celebrity television shows. A chef is a kitchen manager, not only of food quality, but of people and efficient production. A chef is an accountant, tabulating food costs and labor expenses. A chef is a time manager, making sure that the kitchen ebbs and flows to a most efficient standard. And finally, a chef is a botanist and chemist, understanding the relationship of foods and their inherent chemical properties and how these properties all mesh together. I like to sum up all of these abilities in a single word: process. Recipes are lists of ingredients which go into a dinner, but it is the process which makes them taste desirable. As most effective communication is done through example, let me proceed in the same. Several years ago, I found myself in the most fortunate of happenstance, where a local eatery run by a friend of my wife found themselves without a lead cook over the Easter holiday. As they had been promoting their Easter brunch, they found themselves at wit's end. I say I was fortunate because I never needed a job, nor was I looking for one, but instead, word of my expertise came to bear, and I was asked if I would help out temporarily for the holiday brunch. As I no longer find myself in a commercial kitchen, there are times I am nostalgic for the experience, and as this was a means of helping someone in need. I agreed to the opportunity until they could secure a full-time cook. I came in after work one evening to familiarize myself with their menu, and the owner met me in the kitchen to show me some of their specialty items. One in particular was a dish they called a chicken primavera sauté. The dish is self-evident. It is chicken with spring vegetables, primavera, pan-fried in a type of oil, the method of which is to toss the food slightly in the pan, causing the ingredients to have jumped around, or what we know as by the French word sauté. I watched in curious awe as the owner pulled out her recipe book, reviewed the ingredients for me, and then proceeded. She sliced the chicken breast into strips and put them into the pan, and then she added an ounce of butter, a squeeze of lemon, a teaspoon of garlic and other assorted spices, a handful of mixed vegetables, and then a half cup of wine. She then moved the pan to the stove top and turned on the flame. She boiled the concoction until the wine was almost gone, and then poured the ingredients onto a plate and exclaimed, "Voila! Chicken primavera sauté." Now, as a trained chef, I stood aghast at what she had just done. Yes, she followed the recipe and put in the correct ingredients, and yes, she technically did have a dish one could describe as a chicken primavera, but there was no sauté about what she had done. She knew nothing of the chemistry between ingredients, their purpose for being in the recipe. She knew nothing of the process of cooking. Without being too insulting, I told her that she could not serve that dish, that the chicken would be tough and rubbery, flavorless. The vegetables would be flavorless too, and soggy. There was no cream or butter sauce to tie all the ingredients together. She was bothered by my comments when I told her that she had boiled the ingredients together and that was not what a sauté was. She challenged me, so I of course demonstrated the process. I placed a sauté pan on the stove top and started the flame. A sauté means you have cooked something in oil. To do so, you need a hot pan. Not too hot, but just enough to caramelize the protein. Butter is one type of oil, and since butter also contains cream, an emulsifier, it is a good ingredient to use to both pan-fry the ingredients and to create a sauce. I added the butter to the hot pan and it began to melt. I added the garlic. You want to infuse the butter with the garlic so it will spread about the flavor, everything that it coats. I then sliced the chicken breast and added it to the hot oil. The trick is to get the chicken into the pan and slightly toss it about so that it is liberally coated with the garlic-infused oil. You want the edges to slightly brown or caramelize. This is the natural sugars coming out of the foods. We then add the vegetables and toss them about to coat them with the chicken-flavored garlic-infused oil. If the ingredients are sticking to the pan, we want it to stick some, but not too much. We add a squeeze of lemon. The acid in the lemon is a reactive agent, and it will keep the food from sticking to the pan. Now, as we sauté these ingredients, you will notice that there are some particles of food sticking to the pan. These are flavorful tidbits and are held there by the cooked creme from the butter. We want to create a butter sauce from those flavorful tidbits, so we deglaze the pan by adding a bit of wine to the pan. The alcohol will burn off and cause a chemical reaction with the butter, the emulsifier, and what will be left from the reduced wine will be the syrupy sugars blended with the butter. This is your butter sauce. When the sauce is thickened and the ingredients coated evenly, we add it to our serving dish, and this then is a chicken primavera sauté. Notice the chicken is brown just enough with caramelized edges. The vegetables are soft without being soggy. There is no liquid pooling on the bottom of the plate. Same ingredients, just a different process, and by definition of the terms, the correct process. These two products created from the same ingredients become two completely different things. The former, an edible mix of foodstuffs though unappealing and after first taste unappetizing, resulting in a second portion being unlikely. The latter, the same ingredients combined in a process, both appealing and appetizing with a very probable return for more. The problem here is that the recipe spells out this process, but most people are not aware of the coded message that the recipe is describing. In many recipes, it is assumed that the intrepid cook has knowledge of this process, but from experience, it is demonstrated over and over again that this information coded into the recipe is lost. In many lodges, this is Freemasonry today. The correct content, but served up in an unappealing mishmash. This is not the fault the members of the lodges, as emphasis has been put on performing or memorizing the rituals, performing military precision like corners and about faces, rod work, etc., with the explanatory process for these to take place. The information is coded more or less into the ritual work with the assumption that those learning from these works would understand the underlying code, or at the very least be taught it by the more accomplished Mason or more experienced one. Unfortunately, we all know too well that this process is not often taught well. This code is not learned in a comprehensive way, and this can come off as a rubbery mishmash of unappealing information under the guise of Freemasonry. When mentoring someone through degree work, I will stop them and ask them to tell me, in their own words, what is happening or taking place during the ritual at that moment. This is my attempt to provide meaningfulness to the words and actions being presented. Most often, they will try to recite the words they have been memorizing. I tell them, forget the words. Tell me what is happening. What is taking place in the ritual at this moment? I am often faced with the perplexity and confusion as they will continue to recite the words without knowing what is happening within the ritual. We teach the ingredients of Masonry, but do not instruct the meaningfulness or the process very well. Because of this lack of meaningfulness, we have seen the Blue Lodges become a tired affair, a place where members would rather be somewhere else. They demonstrate this by hurrying through a meeting and being proud of the speed of which they handle minutes, petitions, and paying of the bills. And many new Freemasons seek the Masonic Lodge experience. Men who are joining the fraternity today have generally already done a lot of reading and website surfing and have formulated an opinion about the fraternity. What they're finding in the place of this ideal is attendance in a lodge meeting where no actual masonry takes place. Masons like to take credit for showing up for 30 years and proving how they kept the lodge alive, when in reality their lack of allowing for growth, progression, and meaningful experiences are what killed the lodge, leaving only a few embittered diehards who are not sure what masonry is other than a charitable social club. Masons have cheapened the fraternity, figuratively of course, and literally through stagnant dues, crumbling edifices, and plastic forks. Masons have begrudged the man who might actually lead and made certain to limit programs, slow real sustainable programs, and trying new things almost unheard of. We are often our own worst enemies in this regard. And Porter, he quotes, if lodge meetings and functions are no different than any other social functions one would normally have in life, they save the symbols and the jargon, then in time brothers will have forgotten what masonry truly is and abandon what makes it the treasure it has been for centuries to the best of men in all stations of life. It will become just like everything else, conforming to everything else and nothing more. The very thing that makes the craft special will have been sacrificed to what is easy and comfortable, and the quarries then become filled with idlers and those who want the benefits of being called craftsmen without actually doing or knowing how to do any work. And I apologize, that wasn't Porter. That was Andrew Hammer's words in 2013. New members perceive Freemasonry as a venue for truth-seeking, a vehicle for self-improvement and spiritual development, a quest for maturity and masculinity, and the discovery of one's inner potential. Our new brothers know what they want from the craft and have high expectations that their lodge will meet their needs as spiritual men. The focus of a quality fraternity, educational and social experiences for each individual Mason determines the uniqueness and effectiveness of the lodge. And its potential power rests in this. Such a place does not exist anywhere in the world. The foremost purpose of Freemasonry is to provide an atmosphere where good men can unite together in a common pursuit of virtue. How good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. The work of a Masonic lodge should not be to review minutes or bills or plan social or philanthropic activities, although that is a part of it, but rather to create an atmosphere where the members can learn the lessons of Freemasonry and how these lessons can be inculcated into their daily lives. The philosophy of Freemasonry is to make good men better, to improve themselves in Masonry. This does not mean that the lodge can make a man better. It suggests that the lodge can provide the tools for a man to improve himself. This understanding is often lost in the precepts of modern Masonry. Most Blue Lodges, in my experience, have strayed away from education and strayed away from the contemplative aspects of Masonry. And I will just interject here and say that Wisconsin is definitely moving forward in the regards with new education officers and providing education at many, many events. A lodge is instructive. It should instruct. It provides the tools and the knowledge of how to use them. But it is up to the individual Mason to polish the rough ashlar into a more perfect one. This is the process of fitting the rough ashlar of the imperfect being into the perfect ashlar fit for the divine temple. It is a constant transformation through the use of Masonic symbols, rituals, and teachings. This dilemma is exactly what is confusing so many men who are becoming Masons today. They have sought something in Freemasonry that they have, for whatever reason, been led to believe holds meaning or significance or some theosophical taxonomy of ideals. In some cases, they have read about it, viewed documentaries, surfed the internet, or heard secretive innuendos, which have led them to believe that when they express an interest and submit a petition for membership, they are on the path to joining a grand theosophical historical society. What they find, however, in more cases than not, is an old boys club, like any other social club, with nothing distinguishable about it except the fact that it has a legal claim to a name and a legacy it has no intention of living up to. Now, we can bring these men into the craft by whatever means and whatever pace one wishes. We have lost them before they are raised because, well, we have lost ourselves. Forget the words, where are we? What are we doing? What is happening at this moment? Let us be the historians we claim to be and remind ourselves why we exist. Let us be the craftsmen we defined ourselves as and remind ourselves of the process of the craft. All the ingredients fitting together. Our goal is to make good men better. Better, not perfect. Our job as a lodge is to provide the necessary tools, the necessary instruction on how to properly use those tools. The contemplative practice on how to refine our work, how to endeavor on a spiritual and philosophical path towards meaning. We are the builders and discoverers of light or knowledge. Let us work to share that light further. This is no truer now than ever before. And I would implore you to put your education pieces at the beginning of your lodge meetings before you get into any of the serious business. And I joke about this often, but it has kind of two purposes to it. One, if you put your education right after you open lodge and you get through your minutes and approve the minutes and then go right into education, you have something that somebody's going to remember. They're going to be fresh. They're brand new in the meeting. And they get that information right away, and it is literally what they came there for. But not only that, when you get to the business aspect, and it's kind of some big business that you might have to get through, at least you'll shorten that more than you would the education, and therefore become more efficient as a lodge. With that, I want to thank you for joining me, Brother Napoleon Sneed-Janczak, and the rest of the Further Light team on your path through more light in Masonry. Are you interested in learning more about Freemasonry in Wisconsin? Visit wisconsinmasons.org to learn more about Masonry and access further educational content and more light. Once again, that address is wimasons.org. Any questions, comments, or suggestions, please email us at education@wisconsinmasons.org. And thank you for listening.